For 10 years, I scrubbed the floor of a house I used to own. Funny, right? Not in the laugh out loud kind of way, but the bitter, stomach-tightening irony life sometimes throws at you. That house, with its creaky porch and chipped white shutters, once smelled of fresh bread, baby powder, and the kind of love that wasn't afraid to get loud. It used to be mine. My late husband and I bought it when we were young and wild and thought we had all the time in the world. But time has a way of peeling away the layers. And sometimes family forgets. When I lost him, my Gerald, everything changed. The laughter, the anchor, the warmth disappeared. The children, our children, said they were worried, that I was too alone and too fragile. So they convinced me to sign some papers, just in case. Just in case turned into, we're moving you in with us. And somehow, without understanding how it had all unfolded, my name was no longer on the deed. My memories, my years of hard work, gone with a signature and a few, we'll take care of you. They meant well. At first. But meaning well turns sour when it isn't backed by love. Soon, I became a live-in helper, only without the pay. I watched their children when they had errands, then when they had dates, then when they had hangovers. I cooked. I cleaned. I did laundry that wasn't mine. Dishes I never ate from. I slept in the smallest room in the back, next to the heater that never quite worked. They called me Mom. Sure, but it didn't sound like a name anymore. It sounded like a role, a utility. Something they could summon when the fridge was empty, or someone had to be picked up from school. The worst part? I let it happen. I told myself it was fine, that this was love in its older form, quiet, invisible, utilitarian. But I knew, deep down, I knew I had become their maid, and they had stopped seeing me. 10 years. 10 years of shrinking. But here's the thing about shrinking. It builds pressure. And one day, quietly, I exploded. It started with a job posting I saw online while helping my youngest grandson with his homework. Looking for experienced bakers for small cafe startup. My hands, old as they were, still remembered the feel of kneading dough before sunrise. The smell of cinnamon rolls that used to wake Gerald on Sunday mornings. Something fluttered in my chest. An ache I hadn't felt in years. So I answered the ad. I didn't tell anyone. I started small. 2 mornings a week, then 3. Then evenings, when they were too busy to notice I was gone. The cafe was owned by a kind woman named Teresa, who reminded me of myself 20 years ago. She gave me the chance no one else would. She let me create, experiment, teach the younger staff. They called me Miss Ruth, and they listened, really listened. For the first time in a decade, I felt like more than a shadow. Soon, word spread. People came for my pies, my biscuits. Someone on Instagram made a post about the grandma with magic hands. And just like that, people were lining up at the door. Teresa and I became partners 6 months in. She said, "You don't just make food, you bring people home." Those words cracked something in me, because the truth was, I hadn't felt home in a very long time. We opened a second location the following year, and then a third. I was earning more money than I ever did in my youth. Not that it mattered. What mattered was that people saw me, not as someone's mother, someone's burden, but as someone whole. When the cafe got featured in a morning news segment, my daughter texted me for the first time in months. "Saw you on TV, Mum. OMG, why didn't you tell us?" I stared at the screen for a long time before I replied. "Because you stopped asking." After that, they came around more. Invitations to dinner. Awkward, overly sweet phone calls. But I wasn't angry. Not anymore. Anger had lived in me long enough. I was just done performing for their love. Eventually, I bought back my old house. Yes, the same one they took from me. Turns out the mortgage had gotten too much for them, and they had quietly listed it. I didn't tell them I was the buyer. I let the papers do the talking. Walking through that doorway again, without baggage, without expectation, was like breathing after holding my breath for a decade. The walls still remembered me, even if my family didn't. Now, I live alone. By choice. In peace. I still run the cafes. I still bake. I still wake early and drink tea on the porch as the sun rises over the neighborhood that once pitied me. But I am not a victim. I am not forgotten. I am not someone's maid. I am Ruth, and I'm the boss now. Funny how people remember you once you're on TV. Suddenly, I was no longer the tired woman they shuffled between errands. I wasn't just Mom or Grandma anymore. I was Ruth Sinclair, co-owner of the fastest-growing cafe chain in 3 counties, the face behind the warm plate, the woman people lined up to meet. I didn't even need to bake anymore, but I still did, because baking saved me when no one else noticed I was drowning. The first cafe was just a spark. The second caught fire. By the third, local papers were calling me the comeback queen. And wouldn't you know it, my family started remembering I existed. My daughter Michelle called first, voice sugary sweet, said she was so proud, and asked if I could cater her office brunch. I said I'd check my calendar. My son Robert followed soon after, asking for a little help with rent. I reminded him I used to clean his toilets and wash his underwear for free, and now I charge by the hour, plus tax. He didn't like that. I didn't care. For 10 years, they used me. Let me sleep on an old mattress in the coldest room of their house. Gave me leftovers while they ordered in sushi. Never once a thank you. Not once a gift for my birthday, which they somehow always forgot. I was useful, so I was tolerated. Then I stopped being useful, and they panicked. When I bought the old house back, my house, I didn't tell them. I wanted it clean. I wanted to walk those floors without the stink of their entitlement. I hired a restoration crew and brought it back to life. New windows, fresh paint, the smell of lemon polish and yeast rising in the kitchen. Gerald would have loved it. Then came the final touch. I invited them all over. I told them I wanted to host one last family meal to reconnect. They came, of course. Curious, maybe even smug, thinking I'd cook like the old days. I didn't. I had it catered, from my cafe. I let them walk into my home, sit at my table, eat my food, and smile at my success. I watched the surprise bloom on their faces as they realized whose name was on the house deed again. "Oh," Michelle said, eyes wide as she scanned the kitchen, the new tile, the antique dishes I'd saved from storage. "You bought it back?" "Yes," I said, sipping my tea. "Turns out when you treat people well, they thrive. When you don't, well, they buy your house." She choked on her wine. I didn't flinch. The room was quiet for a long time. I let the silence linger, let it sting. Then I stood, and I said something simple. "I'm not angry, just done." They left shortly after. I didn't hear from them for a while, not until Robert lost his job and asked if I could hire him at the cafe. I did, as a dishwasher. I paid him well, treated him fairly, never raised my voice. But I made sure he wore a name tag like everyone else, and I made him clock in on time. There were no shortcuts, not for anyone. I could have been petty. I could have humiliated them. But revenge, I've learned, doesn't always need fire and fury. Sometimes it's just success served warm, while the ones who doubted you are left in the cold. Now, when people ask for my story, I smile and say, I spent years being their maid. Now I'm the one signing their paychecks. And that's all the closure I ever needed.